There are many different callings in life. You can be called to sing, to preach, teach, pastor, whatever it may be. But there is one call that we all share, and that common call is the call to worship. We were created to worship God. And if we don't answer that call of worship, then we're not qualified to do anything else. God desires that we worship him. And when we worship God, it brings us into a place of communion and relationship with him. And that is what sustains us on this Christian journey. So no matter where you may find yourself in life, always have a heart to worship God. Merry Christmas, everybody. I am so glad to be here with you. And I know that some people stumble over the commercialization of Christmas, but I'm not worried about that because I am celebrating the Savior. And I do know one thing, that he was born, and had he not come to earth, I would not have my salvation. And for that, I have joy, and I want you to have joy as well. Yes, this is my first holiday season without my mom, and I am finding new ways to remain joyful, as well as remember all of the good years that I had with her. And I encourage you, if you've lost someone this year, to do the same thing, because Jesus is always a reason for us to have joy throughout this holiday season. If you've been following the channel, if you have not subscribed, go ahead and do so. But if you've been following the channel, you're seeing a lot of new things, a lot of new changes. If there's one thing that 2020 has taught me, it is that no matter how much you plan, things change, and they're not going to always go according to plan. Yes, I believe in planning, but more importantly, I believe in being prepared. So from this day forward, I'm not going to hesitate. I'm not going to procrastinate. As God gives it to me, I'm going to deliver it to you. Make sure you subscribe. Stay with me. And I want you to do me a favor. If you are enjoying the Sanctuary Sunday School, if you don't mind, I would love for you to send me a video testimonial. It can be 30 seconds, it can be 5 minutes, but just tell me what you think. Tell me how you feel. Tell me the impact that the Sanctuary Sunday School has made on your life. You can make a video. You can send it to me. Go to the website at www.thesanctuary.academy, and there'll be instructions there on how to get that video to me, because I really want to know what you're doing and how this is impacting you, to make sure that I'm always delivering what you need from me. And you know what? I also have memberships activated on this site. Go ahead and become a member. I think the memberships are as low as $4.99 a month. And with the memberships, you'll get all of my instructional materials, different things, different downloads. And I'm also going to launch a kids channel, because I want them to have their entire, just a whole channel just for them. So it is a lot coming. Log in, get the downloads, go ahead and subscribe, go ahead and become a member, because you don't want to miss this movement. Now, this week's subject is called to worship, and here we're talking about the 3 wise men. And you know the story. They came to worship Jesus, and they're referred to as magi, which means that they were the nobility. They had money, they had prestige, and they had power. And that's the significant point to me, because what it says right off the bat is that it doesn't matter what you accumulate in life in terms of wealth, position, titles, status, you're still subject to the Lord. And these men understood that. So when they found out that the Savior had been born, and let's go back before that, these men are called wise because they understood who he was, and they recognized who he was. And there are people today who still do not honor Jesus as the Messiah. They say he was a prophet or whatever they say about him. But there are people to this day who still do not understand who Jesus is. But these wise men, through the wisdom of God, they were able to understand who Jesus was and what had happened and the change that was about to occur in the world. So they came to worship Jesus, and they came into the country, and it says that they brought gifts. And we know, the little Christmas speeches, they brought gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. But they brought these gifts to the newborn king, and they recognized him as the king, and they were subject to him, and they fell down and they worshiped him. And the semblance of them bringing gifts, that's where we get the whole concept of giving gifts at Christmas. And a lot of times, I personally have not done any Christmas shopping, and I doubt that I will. But anyway, that we buy all these gifts, and if you go to the stores, they're crowded and people's baskets are overflowing, and they're scuffling, trying to make sure they get what they want. But is Jesus on your Christmas list? What have you done? What have you brought to Jesus? These men didn't come empty-handed, and so we should consider that. And when I come, what does Jesus even want from us? He wants your soul. Have we given our gift to Jesus? Have we presented our bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable unto God? Do we give God the worship that's due his name, following the example of these wise men? They came there and they worshiped him. And then our text says that in this whole chapter talks about how when it came time for them to leave, that God came to them in a dream and revealed to them that they should go back a different way, because it was not safe for the baby to be found by Herod, because Herod had misled them or tried to deceive them and say that he wanted to worship God, but in actuality he wanted to kill the baby. So God led the wise men. And I wanted to bring that point out, because when you operate in true worship, and when you have the wisdom of God, he will lead you and he will guide you and he will direct you. Sometimes, if we're in church, we can be a little bit too easily fooled, but you want to walk in the wisdom of God. And when you worship him and when you walk in God's divine wisdom, he leads you and he guides you, and he will prevent things from happening that will destroy you. God prevented the destruction of his only begotten son by telling the wise men to go back a different way. And then he turned around and he talked to Jesus' earthly father, Joseph, and he told him that you need to take the baby and you need to flee into Egypt, because it's not safe for him to be here right now, and that you got to stay in Egypt until Herod dies. So that is what God will do for you, and that's how he will lead you and guide you if you worship him and submit completely to the will of God. And it says that Joseph got up and he took Mary and Jesus, and at night they left and they did flee to Egypt out of Bethlehem. And this is just also amazing about God and why he's so worthy of all of the worship and the praise, because Joseph lived in Nazareth, right? But it had been prophesied that Jesus would be born in Bethlehem, so he fixed it so that Joseph would have to make the journey to Bethlehem. And so Jesus was born. Okay, check that off the list. Now I'm gonna need you to go to Egypt so that this baby can be safe, because another prophecy was going to be fulfilled about the Son of God being in Egypt. And so we see how God is and who God is, and the way that God does things, the way that he goes before us and prepares a path for us, and the way that he moves on our behalf. And we only have one response to God when we consider all of this, and that response is simply to worship him. Call to worship.